The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Got an interesting little story for you to start the show, kind of a follow-up on Kansas shooting suspect Glenn Miller, Frazier Glenn Miller, Frazier Glenn Cross, Glenn Cross, call him what you will. The mayor of Marionville, Missouri, which is considered the hometown of suspect Glenn Miller in the fatal shootings over the weekend at the two Jewish sites in suburban Kansas City, said this week that he actually agrees with some of Glenn Miller's views. He said, I kind of agreed with him on some things, but I don't like to express that too much. That's Dan Clevenger on Monday in an interview with Springfield, Missouri's KSPR News. There are some things that are going on in this country that are destroying us. We've got a false economy, and it's some of those corporations are run by Jews because the names are there. The fact that the Federal Reserve prints up phony money and freely hands it out, I think that's completely wrong. The people that run the Federal Reserve, they're Jewish. Of course, are the people running the Federal Reserve doing the things they're doing because they're Jewish, or does he disagree with the Federal Reserve's policy and it just so happens that some of those people are Jewish? We're probably not going to hear that nuanced of a description or analysis from Dan Clevenger. In any case, all of this stuff that Dan Clevenger said parrots traditional anti-Jewish canards about the all-powerful Jewish conspiracy, controls the banks. This stuff was popularized in the 20th century. Remember the protocols of the elders of Zion. That's a favorite text, Lewis, of many anti-Jewish individuals. We have to give Clevenger credit where it's due, though. This is better than what he said 10 years ago, where he said in the Aurora Advertiser, I'm a friend of Frazier Miller, helping to spread his warnings. The Jew-run medical industry has succeeded in destroying the United States, misspelled, of course, workforce. The Jew-run government-backed banking industry turned the U.S. into the world's largest debtor nation. The Jew-run medical industry has succeeded in destroying the United States workforce. That's why our factories left. He also made very clear that he deplores violence and actually thinks that Glenn Miller should get the death penalty if convicted. So what do you make of this, Lewis? It's interesting because the stuff he's saying is the exact same. It's sourced from the same traditional anti-Jewish theories that are out there. These are theories that have been in some way or another responsible for the persecution of Jews for hundreds of years, even thousands of years, not the ones he's mentioned specifically here, but some of them. At the same time, though, he says, even though I was at one point a friend of this guy, I think killing is wrong. The funniest part of this to me, Lewis, is that in relation to Glenn Miller, this guy is being portrayed as, listen, guys, he's not really that bad. I mean, he did say Glenn Miller should be put to death. But if we separate it from that, this is an incredibly anti-Semitic guy.
Right. Still someone who's completely misguided. And I do recall, and I believe this was during our interview with Glenn Miller, that he said it would never come to violence and that he doesn't support the killing of Jews. Well, guess what happened? Well, he tried to kill Jews.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's one thing I don't remember from that interview with Glenn Miller back in April of 2010, whether he said, we've had so many extremists where we asked them to clarify, do you or do you not support the killing of Jews, of homosexuals, of black people, that I just honestly don't remember whether Miller made that declaration or not.
I'm pretty sure he said he didn't want to kill them all. He just wanted to put them all on an island somewhere. But clearly, he either was lying or changed his mind about things, and maybe the same could happen with this mayor. I don't know.
There's a school district that has okayed a Bible curriculum. Okay, that would be an insane headline to start with, but there's another part to it, which is that the curriculum was created by the Hobby Lobby president. I mean, Lewis, where is this country going? It's unbelievable what's happening. According to the Religion News Service, the Museum of the Bible Curriculum, created by Hobby Lobby's president Steve Green, is going to be beta tested in Oklahoma's Mustang Public School District beginning in the fall of this year. Green hopes that the program will be placed in hundreds of high schools by 2016 and thousands of high schools by 2017. It's going to be overseen by Jerry Pattengale, head of the Green Scholars Initiative. This is a 4-year elective course where students will study, get ready, the narrative, history, and impact of the Bible to Western civilization. The book is being taught supposedly in an academic purview, not in a religious purview, so it, according to its supporters, it doesn't violate the Establishment Clause of the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court in Abington School District versus Schempp. Nothing we have said here indicates that such study of the Bible, the court decided, when presented objectively as a part of a secular program of education, may not be affected consistently with the First Amendment. So the idea here is simple, Lewis, that as we know, if you teach the history of religion, if you teach that religion exists and do an academic study of religion or of a religion, that is not an establishment of the religion. That's the argument that is being made here. Unfortunately, if we look, this is where it always all falls apart, Lewis. If we look at statements made by by Steve Green when he received the 2013 Templeton Prize for Progress towards research or discoveries about spiritual realities. Quite a prize there that he received. What he said strongly suggests that the material is not going to be presented objectively and it is not going to be part of a secular program. In his speech, Green referred to the Bible as a, quote, reliable historical document that's had a great impact on the world, and that it is his job to point that out and to show that whether it be the government, education, science, art, literature, family, or whatever, the Bible has and should continue to have an impact. He said someday the teaching of the Bible in high school should be mandated. So to believe that he advocates the teaching of the Bible in high schools from a secular perspective would go directly contrary to everything he has said in the past. We have to imagine that in spite of the fact that he has been very clear about the importance of the Bible and its omnipotence, in spite of that, when it comes to teaching it in school, it should be done in a completely secular way. I don't believe it, Lewis. Call me crazy. It seems hard to believe.
Right. And something tells me that if those schools also wanted to teach about the Quran or the Torah in similar ways, he would be opposed to it. And I still think that in the end, this is probably just a business decision. This is probably just about his company making millions and millions more dollars after more people pick up the Bible and say, wow, this is great. I have to go to Hobby Lobby because they're Christians.
First, let's get the obvious out of the way, right? Aside from your personal feelings about the Bible and how it might be useful to you on an emotional or spiritual level, the Bible has been shown to be both historically and scientifically inaccurate from start to finish. So that argument is absolutely ridiculous. But the broader implication here is that the right wing seems to be using Christianity to destroy the public school system that they've always wanted to destroy. I can imagine a situation in a few years where these right wingers will point to schools, to these very schools that they are destroying by putting in stuff like this and say, see, public education doesn't work. Let's shut it all down and instead have private Christian institutions. And of course, we would be able to point to their activism within the public education system as part of the reason why it's not working.
Right. I guess what they want instead of these public schools would be the Christian equivalent of madrasas all over the place. And it's scary stuff. And
75% of those who are homeschooled are being evangelically Christian homeschooled, and I think that tells us a lot about the education reform movement on that side in one area in this country. Going from Oklahoma to Louisiana. Louisiana wants to designate the Bible as the official state book. Ryan wrote to me about this. He says, I'm submitting a story that might have some things you can all discuss on the show. This is fascinating. Zach Coplin, who's been a guest on this program 3 or 4 times, posted this on Facebook, and it blew my mind. Louisiana is trying to make the Bible the official state book. Of course, the conservatives pushing for this are saying it has nothing to do with separation of church and state. However, we all know full well they would be singing a different tune if a Louisiana legislator introduced a bill making the Quran the official state book of Louisiana. That's exactly the point Lewis made in the last segment. The Municipal, Parochial, and Cultural Affairs Committee of the Louisiana House of Representatives voted to forward a measure that would make the Holy Bible the state's official book. A mix of Republicans moved this forward, and this is also interesting. It would designate the oldest edition of the Holy Bible from the Louisiana State Museum as the official book. Initially, lawmakers had proposed the King James Bible, but that was met with objections because it might be off-putting to Catholics. I'm really glad, Lewis, that when thinking of making a religious text the official book of the state, they didn't want to use the wrong version because it might alienate Catholics. That's really nice of them, isn't it?
Well, what blows my mind is just the fact that there are different versions. I think there's something fundamentally wrong there. But you know what? I actually don't have a problem with this.
Oh, boy.
No, and if they want this to be their state book, I think that's their prerogative, and that's totally fine. David, I don't know what our state book was. In Massachusetts, living there for 27 years.
Okay, well, that's a good point, Lewis. First of all, could we as a nation maybe move away from investing so much time and money into designating state whatever, the state bird, the state plant, the state weed, the state rock, right? What's next? The state underwear style. Each state has an official underwear style. This is absurd. I agree with you. But the American Civil Liberties Union actually is opposed to this. They say that it does violate the Constitution. So even though Lewis might not really have a problem with it, we should hold the Constitution-loving conservatives who pray at the altar of the Constitution. We should have them at least abide by the Constitution, shouldn't we?
That would be nice, but most of them don't anyway.
Regretfully, there are a lot of Christians in this country who want the nation to be an altar of Christian worship. Have you heard about the Claim America for Christ movement? If you haven't, you should look into that. This is probably going to be challenged in court and may be ruled invalid. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. Very controversial new study. My inbox has been flooded with emails about a study which has been making the rounds. It is shocking to many. And I thought, well, let's look into this further. According to a study published in the Journal of Neuroscience, even casual use of marijuana can cause, quote, significant abnormalities in two areas of the brain that regulate emotion and motivation. This contradicts the idea that pot smoking is relatively harmless, according to the researchers. The study found major abnormalities related to even small amounts of marijuana smoked each week. Dr. Hans Breiter, the study's co-author, said, some of these people only use marijuana to get high once or twice a week. People think a little recreational use shouldn't cause a problem if someone's doing okay with work or school. Our data directly show that this is not the case. The scientists examined the nucleus accumbens and the amygdala, which are areas of the brain that are associated with addiction, and they looked at the brains of both marijuana users and non-marijuana or marijuana non-users. They measured a lot of different things. I'm completely open to considering that this is a real possibility. I am not personally a marijuana smoker, but I am interested in the truth, right? So I said, let's look into the study. What are the mitigating factors to the strength of these statements? Because saying casual pot use causes brain abnormalities, that's a pretty strong statement. Well, number one, each sample had 9 men and 11 women. And to me, that's a very small sample to draw these very significant and broad conclusions about the effects of casual marijuana use. That was concern number one. Concern number two is that the study was conducted by Northwestern Medicine and Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. That sounds okay. But it was also funded in part by anti-drug government agencies. And as we know, Lewis, who funds studies, what organizations are funding studies and polls is hugely, hugely important. And it's all right there, isn't it?
It is. I also wish that, of course, with most studies we point out, I wish there was a larger sample group, right?
No question about it. And then let's for a second put all of that aside, Lewis, even without knowing that it was funded by anti-drug government agencies. All of these studies, to really be valid, should compare the risks of marijuana use to the risks of perfectly legal alcohol and tobacco use, which they never do, right? Even if we put aside all of the issues with the study, The study says we've determined that pot usage is more dangerous to the brain than non-pot usage, and therefore somebody could say, well, then it should be illegal. It completely ignores the realities of legal and regulated things like alcohol and marijuana. And then the last thing here, the study doesn't say how it affects emotion and motivation. Imagine if it had a positive effect on those things. Imagine if casual pot usage reduced anxiety or made people less aggressive, right? Even if we take it all as absolute, accurate scientific word, it doesn't tell us how the effect on motivation and emotion is negative.
Right. It seems more than anything like a study with an agenda, and unfortunately, there's a lot of this. But I'm not too worried about it because this is just one study, and I still think we're moving in the right direction here.
We definitely are seeing a decriminalization and legalization momentum in this country. Let's take a break. I will talk to you about racist bankers and the First Amendment. We will also talk about Mike Huckabee and North Korea. Very strange statements from Huckabee.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
We are mostly funded by individual viewers, and the membership program is made possible in part by liberalbias.com. Liberalbias.com refuses to have their theories and graphs dictated by fact checkers. Find out how you too can free yourself from the oppression of liberal facts by visiting liberalbias.com. Today's new member of the day is Thomas Pinkerton. Thomas, thank you for being a David Pakman Show member. Join Thomas and get all the same great member perks and benefits he gets at davidpakman.com/membership. It is Thursday, and Thursdays I've been doing recommendations of documentaries, books, etc. Today I'm going to recommend a book to you called The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. The book is from 1962. I read it recently. The concept of the book is an alternate past, in a sense, where the result of World War II was a victory for both Germany and Japan. And the United States is on the West Coast, basically a colony of Japan, on the East Coast, basically a colony of Germany. And the heartland, as we now know it, the middle of the United States, is kind of the non-occupied part of the country. Very interesting book on many levels. I highly recommend it. The concept is good, very good characters, but it also gives us just a different sense of what the U.S. could be like. It doesn't matter that it may not be the most realistic thing, but it really just got me thinking of just the way the U.S. ended up being, melting pot, involvement that the U.S. has had in the world wars and then subsequent. It's not by chance, but it's one of an infinite number of paths, right? And the book really was an interesting exploration of one different way that things could have gone. And as you know, Philip K. Dick, one of my favorite authors, Lewis, author of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which eventually was turned into the movie Blade Runner, just a top-notch author.
Yeah, I do love those stories that have alternate realities. And that's one of the reasons I like Watchmen, even though it's obviously a completely different style of story. But those alternate reality things are very imaginative and great.
So again, I'm talking about the book The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick. I recommend it. If you've read it, send me an email. If you read it in the future, let me know. And you can, of course, get that through our Amazon link. Go to davidpakman.com, click on the Amazon banner on the right side of the website. Do your shopping on Amazon, and Amazon sends us a kickback, no forms to fill out or anything like that. The First Amendment does not protect racist bankers who called Indians chimps, according to a California judge who denied a motion by two executives at Lotus Bank to protect a series of racist emails under the First Amendment. According to Cranes Detroit, Judge Denise Langford Morris of Oakland County Circuit Court denied a motion that was filed by the banker's attorney in this lawsuit that was brought by bank customers. Lotus Bank, which is located in California, serves a heavily Indian American clientele, and of its 17 directors, a majority are Indian. This didn't stop bank president Neil Surley and executive vice president Richard Bauer from being charged with mistreating Indian customers, and the emails where the two men refer to Indian Americans as chimps and said the only good Indian is a dead Indian are being considered as evidence by the plaintiffs. The plaintiffs are two individuals who took out a loan about 6 years ago from Lotus Bank to buy a hotel. Later on, they had trouble making the payments on the $1.5 million mortgage loan, and the lawsuit alleges that their ethnicity played a specific role in the bank's abrupt decision to foreclose on the loan. The original lawsuit says that Surley told them at a meeting, "I don't care what your Indian buddies told you. I make the decisions. I know how you Indians operate. You like to deal with someone you know in upper management, but this doesn't work like that. Do you understand English?" Furthermore, the lawsuit says that Surley and Bauer exchanged numerous emails from 2010 to 2011 where they called Indian customers and board members chimps. Okay. They were also sent to sensitivity training. This is Surley and Bauer, but they remained employees after they were discovered to have sent some of these things. How much do you want to bet, Lewis, that the sensitivity training worked just about as well as the sensitivity classes that Republican male candidates are sent to teach them how to appeal to women?
Right. It's a total joke. Just HR nonsense. Obviously would probably have zero impact on them.
So they tried to make it a First Amendment issue. The judge said that the First Amendment doesn't protect you here, but this is actually a really interesting indicator of why we don't allow businesses to discriminate against people on the basis of race, creed, color, sexual orientation. It isn't benign, right? Like conservatives and libertarians say, hey, the free market will dictate. There'll be another business that pops up that they can go to. In this case, if the allegations are true, their ethnicity allegedly played a role in an abrupt foreclosure, which is really a life-altering decision that a bank makes. This is a perfect indication of why the libertarian fantasy that the market will sort it out and it won't be particularly negative for everybody, they'll just go to another vendor of a service or product, it is simply not true.
Right. It just really doesn't work. And of course, at the start of this, you've got a business decision by the bank to give out this loan. Well, we know what happened with banks and loans. A few years ago, we saw the result of that. And it's really just big business, unrestrained, and it's completely out of control.
Mike Huckabee said that there might be more freedom in North Korea than in the U.S. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee seems to be, trying to appeal to the most extreme wing of the Republican Party, or maybe he wants to hang out with Dennis Rodman on his next trip to Pyongyang, as long as Rodman agrees not to vomit or defecate in the hotel hallway, as he did a couple of months ago. One day after questioning President Obama's Christian convictions on Fox News, Mike Huckabee delivered another quote at a speech in the New Hampshire Freedom Summit. He reportedly said, "I'm beginning to think there's more freedom in North Korea sometimes than there is in the United States." This quote was reported on Twitter by MSNBC reporter Benji Sarlin, as well as the Concord Monitor's Kathleen Ron-Yane. Huckabee's remarks are incorrect. They are ignorant. They're, of course, very offensive to Americans, and they're also very offensive to the people that have been tortured and killed by the Kim regime over the last 7 decades in North Korea. This is more original, though, right, Lewis? Typically, the equations we hear are to Hitler or to Stalin, but now to say there are similarities between President Obama's United States is, of course, what's implied, and Kim Jong-un's North Korea, it's original, if nothing else.
It's great material. I think what we need to do is send Mike Huckabee to North Korea for an extended stay. I think maybe that will open his eyes a bit.
I would urge Huckabee to go and investigate this personally and in depth. He could do no greater service to his country. He should actually move over there, apply for citizenship, and then even vote in their, quote, elections that they have. It might be really eye-opening for him.
Just make sure you tell him that he will have to get a Kim Jong-un
Haircut.
Kim Jong-il, whatever the haircut is, right? He has to get the haircut.
This wing of the Republican Party is so extreme, but if I'm totally honest with you, Lewis, I've become so accustomed to it that it's hard to really feel anything visceral or feel much emotion when Mike Huckabee equates North Korea's regime to President Obama's United States. I know it's ridiculous, but we've been so desensitized to this level of absurdity that it's hard for me to really have a strong response to it.
You're right. There's no shock value at all anymore to comments like this, unfortunately.
Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Over 31,000 Facebook likes, 50,000, Lewis, is the next target. Let's take a break. We'll be back after this. The Westboro Baptist Church visited my alma mater yesterday. I'll talk about that.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Take a second to donate a Twitter retweet or Facebook share to us through Donate Your Account. Go to donateyouraccount.com/David Pakman Show. It's free and it helps our show. An Alabama woman has gunned down her son's boyfriend at a truck stop. She's been charged with murder after allegedly fatally shooting her son's boyfriend. Tuscaloosa County deputies said that 51-year-old Anita T. Hill's son was, quote, involved in a long-term relationship with 36-year-old Jamie Johnson. According to deputies, the three agreed to meet at Love's truck stop in McCalla on Monday just to talk. Investigators said that they talked for a while and then Hill's son returned to his vehicle. Hill and Johnson continued to speak for a few more minutes. When Johnson turned to walk away, Hill shot him in the back, according to WBRC. Police also say that they believed Hill shot Johnson because he, quote, had been violent and abusive to her son, but no criminal records were available to back that story up. Of course, it is theoretically possible much domestic violence goes unreported. We don't see this in any way being a hate crime, said Sergeant Dale Phillips. We see this being a family having issues in this. All the people involved in this were either related or had been acquaintances for several years. It is a little weird for the police officer to deny already that it's a hate crime. Usually you have an investigation to determine that first.
You do, but I guess it's whether or not they just suspect it. It may be a hate crime, I guess. I'm not really sure about protocol here.
Sergeant Phillips also said that he didn't believe Hill went to the truck stop with the intention of killing Johnson. I don't know about that. Again, I think we need an investigation. Meeting near the road, bringing a gun, shooting someone in the back. Remember, shooting in the back, which would suggest that if there was a threat to Hill herself, it was over, right? Because the individual was walking away and she shot him in the back. And if you say that what police said is true, that she shot him in the back because he had been violent to her son, unfortunately, that's not exactly the way the law works. If you believe he was violent at some point in the past, and then when you see him and he's walking away, you shoot him in the back, that does not count as self-defense of a third person. So even if that is the case, obviously we've got a very serious crime here. I like to think that they will at least consider that this may be a hate crime, but we really don't know anything about what was going on in this family, and maybe there was a bad relationship here. So I'm not going to, jump the gun here, but no. But certainly, Lewis, you've been in plenty of bad relationships. But if you or the other or the woman's parent decided to take to shooting, that wouldn't really make sense, would it?
Certainly, and in none of the relationships I've ever been in would any type of shooting or murder make any sense.
Thank you, Lewis. I'm glad you clarified that because you might have been a little bit ambivalent sounding.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
The Westboro Baptist Church protested a gay athlete. This is Derek Gordon from the University of Massachusetts, my undergraduate alma mater. Lewis, we grew up 15 minutes from the University of Massachusetts. Derek Gordon made headlines in the last couple of weeks when he came out saying he is gay. The UMass team, the UMass coach, Derek Kellogg, everybody incredibly supportive. And the Westboro Baptist Church didn't like that. So 5 members of the Westboro Baptist Church showed up. They were holding their big signs. The signs said all sorts of crazy stuff, including, UMass fag enablers and death penalty for, that's the number 4 because that's cool on signs, death penalty for fags. It drew a crowd of about 100 across the street in a counter protest. There was also a rally of 1,500 people who marched at the university campus. The police had to protect the Westboro Baptist Church protesters. The UMass police had to create a barrier, essentially, Lewis, right? I believe it was on Massachusetts Ave, which is an area you and I are very, very familiar with there, in order to protect the protesters from the Westboro Baptist Church. The most absurd thing about this is that if you're going to do anti-gay protests, a school of 22,000 undergraduates with thousands more graduate students in one of the most liberal parts of the country, something like over 80% of Amherst, Massachusetts and some of the surrounding towns voted for Barack Obama in the last election. This is the place where you're going to have a huge counter protest when you show up. And I have to tell you, I love the fact that my alma mater came out in force.
To be honest, the Westboro Baptist Church probably loved it too. It made for a bigger story, more media coverage, and it seems like that's really all they care about.
That's the thing. I do think that if no one paid any attention, there's the media argument, right? If the media didn't pay attention, and we're sometimes told this, that would be better for everybody. That I actually don't fully agree with. I think it's important to expose these views in a situation where I'm arguing with them one-on-one and it's a very specific controlled setting. If nobody showed up, if they were completely ignored, where they didn't even need police protection because nobody reacted, you would think they would actually stop doing these protests.
Maybe, but I'll tell you that, you know what, they're media whores. They're worse than any narcissistic celebrity. They're worse. They're the worst, David. That's all they care about. Something
really funny. I haven't independently confirmed that this is who it seems to be, but we interviewed Scott Lively, the anti-gay gubernatorial candidate in Massachusetts earlier this week. And if you go onto our YouTube clip for that interview, you'll see that there's a Steve Drain who is commenting, and it's all sorts of anti-gay negative comments and negative comments about me and the program. And it purports to be the same Steve Drain who is in charge of media relations at the Westboro Baptist Church. We haven't independently confirmed that it isn't an account that in every way appears to be Steve Drain from WBC, but actually is an impersonator. It seems to be Steve Drain, and he has been all over our comment threads, Lewis, on YouTube. It seems like he has a lot of time on his hands.
It's probably all he does. I'm telling you. It's all about how many people can see us doing our thing and saying what we have to say. That's all it is.
One funny thing from the protests at UMass, 7 students stripped to their underwear or Speedo swimsuits in spite of it being really cold there yesterday, including senior Alex Knee Monkey. Knee Monkey is one of the most interesting last names I've ever heard. Said the message was, hey, we're secure in ourselves. Speedos, he said, represent what's considered gay. I'm sure the Westboro Baptist Church loved the guys in Speedos running around.
I'm sure some of them actually were quite aroused, yeah.
I think it is really, really cool that the reaction has been so positive, though, to Derek Gordon. I look forward to seeing him play on the UMass basketball team next year. I actually attended some UMass basketball games this past season, and UMass had a better team than we've had in a really, really long time. And I think that this is actually all really good attention for a school that is already known as being completely pro-equality and one of the best places, in spite of course, all the isolated incidents of homophobia that exist in most places in the country right now. Overall, just a very, very pro-equality place, and I'm glad to say I got my undergraduate degree there. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We will talk about really strange comments from Republicans about breastfeeding. We will also talk about parades celebrating rich people and your voicemails. As always, 219-2-DAVID-P is our voicemail line. Call it any time of day.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
A Republican said that they wanted more women breastfeeding because it is both smart and sexy, Lewis. 2 Republican lawmakers from Alaska apologized this week after a press release from the House Majority website called breastfeeding smart and sexy. The document was called Smart and Sexy. Legislature encourages hospitals to promote breastfeeding. In a statement that was obtained by the Huffington Post on Wednesday, Congresswoman Shelley Hughes, who sponsored the bill, actually, I don't know if Shelley Hughes is a man or a woman, so I don't even want to say she.
It's a woman.
It is a woman. Okay.
It's a woman.
Sponsored the bill, expressed regret for the phrasing. My intent was to draw attention to this incredibly important issue. Unfortunately, this is not the kind of attention I hope to receive. I take full responsibility for the headline. I apologize for the poor choice of words, and I'm sorry if I offended anyone. Alaska Speaker of the House Mike Chenot, also a Republican, stepped up and took responsibility, saying, "The wording used was unfortunate, and I didn't want it to detract from the great work Congresswoman Hughes did in passing this resolution." The State House Concurrent Resolution 18 was also passed by the Alaska Senate, encourages hospitals to promote 10 steps to successful breastfeeding, which is a program. Political blogger Amanda Coyne was baffled by the line. She said, "It's also unclear for whom breastfeeding is supposed to be sexy. The baby, the mother, the viewer?" I think that is the best question we could be asking, which is, even if you agree with the concept of sexy breastfeeding, who is it so appealing to? I can't imagine it's the baby. Most women I speak to don't seem to think that their own breastfeeding is sexy in any way. Maybe it's to some third-party observer?
My guess would be that the statement is meant to it's meant to be that a woman who breastfeeds is sexy. If I had to guess, that's what I would think it's supposed to mean.
When Michelle Obama was promoting breastfeeding, the right said, "Oh, this is a nanny state. Look at how involved the government is getting in what people are supposed to do." And all of a sudden, you've got a Republican bill that seems to be moving very swiftly through the Alaska legislature, which is also discussing breastfeeding. I'm shocked that Republicans would focus on women's breasts because they don't usually focus on individual parts of women's bodies. Oh, except for all of that obsession with women's vaginas and transvaginal ultrasounds, birth control, pregnancy, abortion. I guess I kind of forgot about that. It does make perfect sense that they would focus on this.
It seems to be a major part of their focus. For some of them, it's the only thing they focus on.
This is an insane story. We just got word of this, and I'm going to actually pull up an article on my phone, and it's being reported widely, not on satire news websites, for example, on USA Today. And the story is Jews ordered to register in East Ukraine. Jews in the eastern Ukrainian city of Donetsk, where pro-Russian militants have taken over buildings, were told they have to register with the Ukrainians who are trying to make the city become part of Russia. Jews emerging from a synagogue said they were handed leaflets that ordered the city's Jews to provide a list of property they own and pay a registration fee, or else have their citizenship revoked, face deportation, and see their assets confiscated, according to Israel's largest news website. The leaflets bore the name of Denis Pushilin, who identified himself as chairman of Donetsk's temporary government, and were distributed near the synagogue there and other areas. Lewis, this seems like a satirical article. We've done the research we could do while we've been producing the show. There's no evidence right now that this is any kind of satire. I cannot believe what I am reading here.
Yeah, I don't think in the entire time we've been doing this show, we have ever reported on something like this. And it's mind-blowing that this could happen. I mean, I guess if it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen in a completely unstable region where there have been decades and decades of known anti-Semitism.
The leaflet begins, "Dear Ukraine citizens of Jewish nationality." Interesting, Jewish isn't really a nationality. And states that all people of Jewish descent over 16 years old must report to the Commissioner for Nationalities in the Regional Administration Building and, quote, register. It says the reason is because the leaders of the Jewish community of Ukraine supported Ben Deri junta, a reference to Stepan Bandera, the leader of the Ukrainian nationalist movement that fought for Ukrainian independence at the end of World War II and opposed the pro-Slavic People's Republic of Donetsk, a name adopted by the militant leadership. It says Jews need to provide ID and passport to register your Jewish religion, religious documents of family members, as well as documents establishing the right to all real estate property that belongs to you, including vehicles. Consequences for noncompliance will result in revocation of citizenship, and you will be forced outside the country with a confiscation of property. It costs $50 apparently to register. I don't even know what to say. We will keep looking into this. If it ends up that this is some kind of incredible satire or misreport, then everybody fell for it. If you look at how widely this is being reported, just an unbelievable story, and guaranteed we will be following up on that. 219-2-DAVID-P is our voicemail number. Here is the Eggman. Haven't heard from the Eggman for a little while.
Hi, Dave. Have you ever listened to, like, Taylor Swift or a young girl sing a song about love and relationships, and you think, this girl's only 16, she has a great voice, but she really has no experience on love and relationships? How the hell could she write a song about this? Dave, I love almost everything you say, but I have to say, okay, as far as taxes go, paying property taxes in New York State, and as far as children go, I just think in those two issues, you need to have some more experience. Maybe kids, you might know, it's obvious you can't hit a kid, whatever, but unless you're paying $6,000 a year on property taxes on a $100,000 house in the state of New York, you don't understand how much the government takes away from you every 6 months when your property taxes or your school taxes are due. That's all, brother. Otherwise, I love you, and I believe in the Bundy ranching. The guy's a loser. But, man, in New York State, as soon as you buy a house, start paying property taxes. So
the Eggman is right. I don't own property in New York State, and I'm not that familiar with the property tax rates. I do own property in Massachusetts, and I'm familiar with the property tax rates there. And if what the Eggman is saying is accurate, then the property taxes are significantly lower in Massachusetts. I haven't independently confirmed that. I do know that property taxes in parts of New Jersey are completely out of control. And I know people who are having to sell their homes simply because their property taxes are more than their yearly mortgage payments. And it's completely out of hand. That's absolutely for sure. Here's one more voicemail. Take a listen to this.
Hey, David, you gay, straight, Jewish, neo-Nazi son of a bitch. Just kidding. This is the Honest Economist. I think Newt Gingrich made a Freudian slip when he said the middle class are people who only donate $3 million to campaigns.
Yeah.
To Republicans, that's true. They get hundreds of millions of dollars from billionaires to help their campaigns. To them, the little people, or the middle class, are people who only give $3 million each. This proves not only do Republicans not represent the middle class, they don't even represent millionaires. And all of their policies prove it. Thanks.
All right, big time stuff from the Honest Economist. On today's bonus show, Netherlands closing many prisons, HP and bribery, India's anti-public defecation mascot. What's that about? And I will tell you about the attack piece that is in WorldNet Daily about me and about the program I will appear on later today to discuss that piece. Big stuff. You don't want to miss that. davidpakman.com/membership. Get the bonus show. Get the commercial-free audio and video feeds of the show. And support independent media. Vote with your dollars and effect some change in our corporate media landscape. Talk to you then.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.